really believe nothing is impossible for you to grasp and master. You just have to kind of pick out what you want. Understanding that the only way you improve is you have to go out there and do it. I wanted to do something where I could have an impact on people's lives. I could help to make people's lives better. These things we do are not ours. These things are other people's houses. And if you want to be an artist, go paint. If you want to be an architect, realize that you're dealing with the health and safety and welfare of people. And I have had a lot of clients tell us that they've said, well, we want to die in this house. And it's going to make me cry here because, what an honor to get to help people do that. Chokes me up.
The construction world is fascinating, but it's not perfect. Behind every building you admire, there are creators, dreamers, and problem solvers bringing ideas to life. Join me as we uncover the stories and insights of the professionals shaping the world around us. Hello everyone, welcome to Creative Blueprints. Today I'm so excited because I had Peter Pfeiffer in the last season, but of course Barley and Pfeiffer is a company and two last names, so we were missing a 50% of that interview. So today I'm so excited because we have Alan Barley. Welcome to Creative Blueprints, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to do this, and I'm so excited to have you. I have learned a lot about your work. You have shared a lot of things that are pretty interesting.
Good.
And I would love that you can share us a little bit about yourself, how you started in the construction field, why you decided to be an architect between all the other professions in the world. So, just tell me more.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me,
Yeah.
and I'm looking forward to sharing with you and lovely work that you're doing. So appreciate what you're bringing to everyone and with the information. I came into this business. It was an interesting process because growing up, I spent a lot of time with my maternal grandparents
Okay.
as a kid in grade school. My mother's side of the family is Hispanic, and my grandfather, my great-grandfather emigrated to Monterey from Italy. His last name was Gallo. And then in 1911, my grandfather was born in 1901 in Monterey. So he came over in 1911. And as I was growing up, I would spend a lot of time with both my grandfather, who was a barber, never drove, but he worked downtown across the courthouse in San Antonio. And my grandmother I think she was my first big artistic influence, because this is early 60s. I was born in 57, so grade school. And it was very interesting to see a Hispanic woman in San Antonio in the early 60s entering art shows at La Vita downtown, and she did ceramics.
Wow.
So she would do dolls and make the clothes and paint the faces and fire. And my grandfather set up a kiln for her in a little side room, the cuartito, we called it.
Cuartito.
Yes.
Okay.
And she had her kiln there. She had just shelves that she did painted, and she would make flowers and vases and all these things. And I would go with her while I spent many weeks during the summer with them. as she would go out and buy her supplies at the various ceramic shops. And then I would also, on Mondays, go with my grandfather. We'd ride the bus from Southside San Antonio into downtown. And at that time of everything, all the department stores had lunch counters
Okay.
there. So we would get there and we'd go to Cressus. I don't know if you've heard of Cressus before, but it's a department store,
Okay.
one of many in downtown San Antonio. And we'd go to the counter, and my grandfather would buy me a donut, and we'd get some frothy milk, the bubbly. And then we'd walk a couple blocks back to his barber shop, and he'd sit there and putter around, and I'd walk around. But then we would also then always, he'd go and buy me some toy or something at one of the shops. And then we oftentimes would walk all over the Riverwalk at that time. And I really began to get a love for San Antonio that I knew even at that early age. And so my grandmother was really maybe the first example of somebody who did art. I didn't really realize it in that, but she would enter all her stuff into these shows downtown that happened, and she would win blue ribbons for all her work.
Nice.
And it was really amazing to see that happen, and I really do credit them for maybe expanding my vision. And then my mother, my father was from Pennsylvania, and my mother born in San Antonio, and she would always take us during the summer when we were off from school. We'd always go picnic at the missions in San Antonio. And so by the time I was getting out of grade school, I'd been to like every mission because we'd had a picnic or two out there over the years, and began to appreciate that legacy, which is quite an amazing architectural legacy in San Antonio that was sitting there. It's really the only working aqueduct I think I read of an aqueduct built by the Spaniards in the United States. And I still love to go out there and do that. So, I began to get a love for the city and I think unknowingly for architecture, and began to appreciate those things. So in grade school, I always was able to draw, and it was just something that was easy for me to do, and so I would do things for different classes, and then as I started junior high, 7th grade, I started taking drafting classes as electives. And I took drafting classes all the way through high school, which kind of taught me how to draw at that point with a T-square and with triangles and instruments and lead holders and I found it very fulfilling, and it was easy for me to do. And at the same time, that year between 6th and 7th grade. So the tower in San Antonio?
Yes.
Okay. So the tower was built for Hemisphere 68. It was sort of a regional World's Fair. They had a monorail going through the whole downtown area where it happened, and it was a big thing. And the year after that, one of the buildings, they had a great fabric of old buildings that they used as part of Hemisphere. And one of them, they were having a summer crafts camp. And I went out there with my buddy because I already knew with my grandfather San Antonio, so my friends and I, we just would jump on the bus. We'd take the bus to downtown and hang out there on Saturdays and come back and get home before dark. And we would go down there, and I went down there to want to learn how to process photographs.
Okay.
Develop negatives, the old school where you put them in a canister and you put all the chemicals in and to print photographs. And my buddy, who lived a block away, had a guitar, so he wanted to go play guitar. So I did end up learning how to do all the photography, but I ended also learning. I went and sort of commandeered his guitar because he didn't really work out for him. But we had this young woman who had just been to Woodstock the year before, kind of blonde hippie, but she did it. She was a good guitar player, so she was teaching, and I kind of took to that and found that I could have a voice in that because I wasn't real. I was kind of an introvert going all the way through high school, but I did find that I could convey emotion through the instrument. And it did tell me, it did sort of teach me my first big life lesson that I've been able to apply to everything else that I found in those early years of 7th grade, 8th grade, that if I might not be a prodigy at some of these things that I try and do, but if I worked hard enough at practicing what I wanted to learn, eventually I would become a prodigy at what I was practicing at. And if you learn that lesson somewhere early on in life, then I really believe nothing is impossible for you to grasp and master. You just have to kind of pick out what you want to do. But if you work at it long enough, eventually you become a master at what you're working at. And so that's what guitar taught me, and I've been able to apply that life lesson to that instrument, but also to architecture. So as I graduated, I was playing in bands and gigging through my latter high school years, and got out and went to the junior college and got married. And through those couple of years outside of high school, and then 1979 I got married and had a child shortly after. And I decided I was doing warehouse work as a job, and I decided with a company that's very well known in Texas, a regional grocery chain, and they treat their people very well. And you could really spend a lifetime working there and be taken care of with a good company. But I felt like I could maybe do a little more. So after 4 years out of high school, I decided to, being married was just having a child. I decided, I really need to get serious. And so let me go try architecture because I drafted. Yeah. And I wasn't very good at math. So that's kind of what dissuaded me initially from doing that. And luckily the junior college, San Antonio College, had a program that would transfer into UT, an architecture program that would transfer into UT for third year. And so I went ahead and enrolled it. And now they have UTSA, which has an architecture program, and there's lots of other avenues. But they weren't, this was 1979. It was San Antonio College was the only thing there. And that first semester, as we started doing the design projects, the architect, and they used architects that worked in the community to teach classes. And there were 2 architects that full-time ran the program. And the gentleman who ran the program saw my project, and he said, "Hey, you're pretty good at doing this." I said, "Okay," because I had no reference. I had never even been inside an architect's office. Okay, so he said, "Well, look, let me. I have a lead for a job right now. I got a call on, and let me hook you up with them." And so he was able to get me in touch with a large commercial firm, probably 50 people, 5 partners that did big buildings. Wow. Long history of, they're still in under different names now over the years, still in business. Okay. And I started working out there, and it was the first time I saw a parallel bar and a drafting room where there's maybe 30 or 40 people in there. And I would, one of the partners, who was one of the designers who was the designer for the firm, his father worked in the drafting room, and he was in his 80s, and he was still drawing. And wow. Have you ever heard of Leroy? Yeah. Okay, so he would Leroy, wow. And he would do it on these 3x4 sheets of linen. And this was in the 80s, right? This was, the early 80s. And at that point, there wasn't Mylar. There was paper, vellum, and there was linen. actual sheets of linen that people drew on for drawings that you wanted to have not deteriorate. And it really did get me a great insight into how an architecture office worked. And I was able to use that to jump around as I learned more. I would try to direct what I wanted to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself taking drawing classes, sketching classes, there with some really great people in the community, folks in the community that were amazing sketching and design architects.
Mm-hmm.
And they would teach you classes, and I felt like, well, I really like the drawing, and I want to learn how to do more. So I said, well, I'll just go out. I've got this trip that I go from getting out of class, driving to my job on the other side of San Antonio. So I put a lawn chair in the car, and I got a clipboard with a bunch of copy paper. I think there was copy paper at that time, photocopy machines. And I had some felt tips, and I would, on the way out to my job, I would stop at, San Antonio has a very rich, vibrant fabric of old houses and buildings. And I would stop somewhere, King William, Terrell Hills, Monte Vista, any of those places. And I'd find a house, and I'd sit out there for 30 minutes with a lawn chair, and I'd draw as much as I can. And then I'd go on to work, and then come back that evening, but when I got back home, and kind of do the rest of the details. So that was 1981, and by the time that year was over, I had put together maybe 30, 40 drawings.
Yeah.
And I was getting pretty good to where I would end up near the end of that process of going out and doing this. I came up with this idea of doing what I call a sketchercise, I called it, where I would draw as much as I can in 15 minutes and stop.
Wow.
And I was able to, I have a few of those now, and they were pretty complete. But again, it was understanding that the only way you improve is you have to go out there and do it. It was that applying that lesson that I learned from playing guitar to drawing. And so those drawings, that's what I call now, which I'm thinking about issuing as a book, the San Antonio sketchbook of different sites all over San Antonio. That process really began to give me, I was teaching myself how to draw. And while I was teaching myself, I was also building my confidence in drawing, because I didn't use pencil, I used pen.
Wow.
So, you begin to understand that how to work with sort of the finality that ink has. Yeah. But it was all great experience. And that's where I felt like, thanks to all those, going back even to my grandmother and my grandparents, to all the teachers that I had at San Antonio College, helping me kind of get to that point to where, hey, I really like doing this. So I'm going to go out and keep learning how to draw better, because I knew that was important. And for those drawings, plus my projects that I did there in the design studios, those first 2 years, formed the basis. To get into UT, you had to submit a third-year portfolio. And they look at that, and that's when they decided they're going to let you into the school and where they're going to place you. So, I was able to get in, and I had all those drawings and all the sketches, and they were instrumental for my third-year portfolio. And then third year at UT, my wife and daughter stayed in San Antonio for third year, so I would drive up to Austin Monday morning and go to class all week. I stayed with a couple other guys that I went to SAC with that we all got in. And then Fridays I would drive back home to San Antonio from Austin. Saturday, I was able to work with a architect by the name of Joe Stubblefield. And I had the great opportunity to sit with him on Saturdays, because he would oftentimes meet with clients. And I got to sit with him and watch him generate ideas with a roll of yellow sketch paper and a big fat Mont Blanc fountain pen. And he would sit there and draw solutions and sketch ideas and sketch images. And when I saw him do that, basically he was generating ideas in real time with the immediate feedback of the clients, really letting them become part. It was the first time I saw interactive design where the client can see what you're drawing and give you immediate response. And because Joe could draw, he could sketch. He was an amazing sketcher, artist, sketchbook artist, and visual artist and designer. He could make adjustments in real time. And when I saw him do that, I said, well, that resonated with me. And somehow, luckily, thank the Lord, I was in that path to be with him. And he was one of my early mentors, besides the gentleman, the architect that ran the department at SAC that directed me and got me a job at the firm. I consider him to be another mentor of somebody who identified and put a seed in me that I could do this better. And Joe was great because he gave me a job. He really didn't need to have me working for a few hours on Saturdays, but he did to help me out. And before I left to go up to Austin, he gave me a really nice portfolio.
Yeah, for sure.
Zippered to put all my work in to present it. And unfortunately, a few years later, he passed away early with cancer. But I always am thankful to him for what he showed to me in terms of kindness,
yes,
and mentorship,
of course,
and igniting something. And I think why I even wanted to go do architecture when I decided to go to San Antonio College and start that program 4 years out of high school, I still felt like I wanted to do something where I could have an impact on people's lives. I could help to make people's lives better. And there's all sorts of ways you can do that, but with my skill set, with the fact that I drew, I said, well, let me go try architecture. I'm not that good at math, but maybe that's okay. So when I started, I realized it was something that was easy for me to do. And you don't really realize those things at the time. But things seem to flow. And so they began to flow for me, and that's how I got started. And I ended up graduating from the University of Texas in 1985 with a Bachelor of Architecture, and went to work for one architecture firm that was very well known regionally for design. And then went to work spent a year there and worked for another architecture firm that was really well versed in doing commercial work. As I was working for this large commercial firm, they did warehouses and apartments, and it was a great experience. Again, it was another large firm where there was a drafting room with about 50 people in it. But at that time, the end of 1987, beginning of 1988, the economy crashed. Yeah. And we would find people. I had a lot of people that I knew that I graduated with from UT that went either to Los Angeles or to Boston was a big place people went. And I was, out of 50, I was number 14 left before I got let go. But the partner, with 4 partners, one of them came up to me and said, hey, I got this gentleman who's buying a piece of property where I live out west of Austin. And he wants to do a house, and he seems kind of like interesting. And why don't you, we have to let you go, but you can take that job and do it. So I went and met with the gentleman. The gentleman was Richard Garriott. Richard Garriott was one of the early creators of creative role-playing computer games. Okay. And his father was Owen Garriott, who was a Skylab astronaut. And Richard was an amazing creative force. And that was the first house I did, and
Wow.
helping him realize his vision. And so thankful that I have, and we actually did an extensive remodel of a brownstone, of a 4-story brownstone in downtown New York City for him many years later. But it was a very interesting house. He had an amazing vision because he authored software, role playing software, and so it was a direction of his design as much as me. But it did have an observatory at the very top of a tower.
Wow.
And then that you start making connections, and that led to another house in the same subdivision west of town, and then another house, and then eventually I think that I felt like it was good to maybe begin to partner up with somebody. And going back to connections at UT for third year, I was taking site design as an undergrad student, which he had to take, and Peter was grad because he came in as a grad student. I was undergrad, so he was a teaching assistant for site design. Got to meet him, and we actually had a studio in third year together, because every year you take 2 design studios, and we got to know one another then. So we hooked up, and realized that we were kind of 2 very different types of people, as you could probably attest to. But the interesting thing was that what I was and he was, and what he was and I was.
That's pretty cool.
It together we would form something that is hard to find in a single person, and with the sort of building sciences, and then the ability to draw and sketch and design and the creative side. And I think that as we came together, we realized that was unique. We realized that we had 2 very different people, that there had to be something there for everybody,
Yes.
and started partnering up and going after work together. And that was, I think, 1989, and we have been together ever since. And the reason why, going back to thanking Joe Stubblefield for allowing me to sit at those Saturday meetings with his clients, watching him problem solve and create ideas, is that it's becoming a dying art to do architecture that way with the, and how can you not? And it's just easy to understand why, because with the advent of computer-aided design, CAD, and then the visualness of computer renderings, to be able to now, as you see on our walls here, we have images of designs that haven't been built that look like photographs. So it's very overwhelming and very impressive, and it does give great clarity to clients who might have trouble visualizing drawings to see what their projects might look like. And you always want a client to really be fully aware of what you're presenting to them, because you want them to be able to understand. It's critical for them to understand what they're seeing, so that they can give accurate, real-time feedback about what they like and what they don't like. Because I always say, these things we do are not ours. These things are other people's houses. Yeah. And it's actually even more serious than that. I've always begun to think, if you want to be an artist, go paint. If you want to be an architect, realize that you're dealing with the health and safety and welfare of people. And that's the first charge that we have as architects, that we are dealing with the lives of people. And actually, I feel like architects have this charge if we're designing houses, or even if we're doing buildings, that we're actually shaping the containers, or maybe it's like the covers of a book. We're designing the covers of a book that's going to house the pages of people's lives. So the people are actually writing the stories, and we're providing the book that's going to house the stories. And so we get to come in, and we get to be there sometimes at the beginning, and we're providing the cover for the pages of the initial chapters, and for the births of children, and for the first steps, and for the kindergarten, grade school, and the graduating high school and college, and the marriages. And then sometimes we get to come in midpoint and handle, shape that cover and help them write the book of a midpoint. And then a lot of times we have the very honor and somber charge of helping them write the book that's going to have the pages, the last pages of their lives. And I have had a lot of clients tell us that they've said, we want to die in this house. And it's going to make me cry here because, what an honor to get to help people do that. Yeah. Chokes me up.
Yeah.
But it is an honor that you have. We just went back to do some additions to a house on Lake Austin. It was a very amazing house. The only house I think we've done that had a copper roof, copper downspouts. Lovely design. He said, I still remember, Alan, when you came out here and looked at the empty lot, and you basically looked around, you sketched out the basis of the floor plan, and it never really changed after that. But he said, I want to die in this house. It's okay, so we're making adjustments so that we can add an elevator in and do a couple things. And he's my age, so this is the house I want to die in. And so we do what we kind of lightly call FRPs for people, and that's final resting places.
That's incredible.
And what an honor to be able to help try to think about all those things that that you want to think about when folks are going through that part of life. So the work that we do, you can consider it be art, but it really is dealing with the lives of people. Yeah. And you're dealing with, like I said, people are going to be raising their children. Yeah. People are going to be watching them, graduations, the first date, marriages, grandkids, the whole cycle of life. We get to help write the book that's going to contain those pages.
And also will be the house for many kids that they are not deciding about the house, but they will remember through the years.
Right. We are helping them write the memories of a lifetime. Yes. And we oftentimes help them write the beginning chapters, the births, the first steps, kindergarten, all those things. But we also help them write the chapters where they're going to end their days in these houses. And that's probably what I feel like is the most serious charge, to think about how to do a project that's going to allow them to live an effective life as they get older. And because my wife and I were caregivers for 3 parents, and I had 3 parents die in my house. My wife, it was Saturday morning, my wife was doing my mother's hygiene, cleaning and everything. And I heard, Alan, Mom stopped breathing. So it was that point on that Saturday morning that was when she died, and we got to be with her right at that moment. Tell her we loved her, and I could see her mouthing the words back to us, and then she passed. Had she been somewhere else, or maybe it was at night, that wouldn't have happened. But there's some crazy stuff when that happened, I sat in that room and I felt a presence in that room for several days. I couldn't figure out what I was seeing, but I felt something.
Yeah.
And it was, we had a gentleman work with us. He's a guy that did some of these. He's the guy that Peter goes to get these little sketches about things that we show to help illustrate. He worked with us for 20 years, and we were down there at IBS. And I had gotten together with Steve to go have dinner, and I was telling him, yeah, my mom, we took care of her, and she passed away, and we were talking about some of the stuff. And and it's like, and all of a sudden I realized that talking to him what I was seeing. I said I was sitting there, and it's like there was this blue haze and the sparkles of gold just floating around, and that imagery lasted there for several days. And I really felt like my mom, she had given her life over to God.
That's beautiful.
And I felt like there was that intersection of earth and heaven coming together in that room. That presence lingered there for several days. Got to go sit there. And it wasn't until like almost 2 years later that I realized I was able to verbalize what I was feeling, but also at that point what I was seeing. And it was just talking to my buddy and me. That's how that is. And spiritual stuff is, you don't often know when that stuff's going to hit you. Yeah. But it hits you, and then when it hits you, it's happening. So anyway.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. We never see the buildings on that way, and when the thoughts are very deep, it's a different way to see what we are doing daily. It's just like a different perspective.
Well, it's again, we don't. Now, this is just me speaking, but it's not about buildings. With an architect, it's not about buildings, it's about people.
Yes.
If you're stuck on the buildings, then you're missing a little bit of it.
99%.
So that's what I want to be. I want to promote drawing because of the idea to generate ideas. And I think architects, sometimes we get caught up on the box.
Yeah.
And really, I went to a Texas Society of Architects design symposium 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was in Kerrville, and it was looking at ranch houses. We looked at a lot of Lake Flato, a lot of the people, well-known people that do these big ranches out South Texas. And a gentleman who was once the former dean of the School of Architecture in North Carolina was the keynote speaker. I think he was 80. Frank Harmon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You might have heard of it. Amazing, profound. Yeah. And anyway, as he was talking, he said, never photograph your houses without people in them. Because the buildings are not buildings without people breathing the breath of life into the buildings. That's great. Without people, the buildings are just empty boxes.
Yep.
And do we want to design empty boxes, or do we want to design spaces that make people's lives better? You see, so I took that to heart.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I realized that it's the people that validate and give meaning to the work that we do. So as an architect, what I do is and what I want to try to emphasize to people that I talk to, not about buildings. It's about people. Our business is not about buildings. That's the byproduct. It's like we don't do drawings. I mean, drawings are a byproduct. We come up with ideas, and we create ideas to solve problems for people. We're really problem solvers that help shepherd the lives of people through the built environment. But without people, the boxes are just empty boxes. And so that was another one of those revelations. So I have this thing when I go out to conferences. I take notes, okay? I take notes by hand because...
I love that. I saw your notebook and
what happened was it's very easy. I draw all the time. I'm drawing every day because I design here in the office. So my day oftentimes is spent just drawing, sketching. But I decided, I was out of, my son was a Boy Scout and ended up getting his Eagle Scout a few years back. And I did all the campouts with him as a Boy Scout. And every year we would travel somewhere in the country to go to a summer camp. And I was taking an adult leadership class outside of Asheville, and I had my sketchbook because I was going to try to feel the fire again of it. And as the gentleman was talking about things, and as he was teaching, he would talk about a camp stove or something else, and I decided, well, I'm just going to draw a sketch of it. So I started doing that. It kind of began to fuel the fires of the sketchbook again. And I realized again, I decided at that point I needed to find a way to easily integrate the act of drawing into everyday life. Because when you do something every day, you begin to make it a habit, like playing an instrument. I practice every day. And I've been doing that for decades now. So again, it takes, you don't, because we all have responsibilities, we all work. We can't, I'm a full-time architect, and I say I'm a part-time musician. But again, it's going back to that very early life lesson that if I practice something, even if it's only 30 minutes a day or an hour a day, if I do it over a long period of time, I eventually mastered that. And I decided, well, I need to apply that to drawing. And so I decided to get away from taking notes digitally and to go back to getting a fountain pen, old school, and a sketchbook, and even getting a sketchbook that integrated everything, sketches, idea generating, and taking notes. So I have one book that I just put everything in. And it's like a journal, maybe call it an illustrative journal. And of course, Instagram, you can find I find Instagram to be a wonderful place to research what other artists and other architects and other people, musicians are doing, because it's very visual. I'm very visual. So I realized people are doing that. They're doing journals where they're chronicling daily life, sketching, drawing, note-taking, and sketchbooks. And it got me back to working in an analog format where I'm actually writing notes by hand with an ink pen that I fill up with ink as it goes dry, and then drawing sketches in there as I come up with ideas. And then because I see the progress, it fuels me on to start looking for other things to draw. And oftentimes I don't have the opportunity to get out and look at things, so sometimes I look at photographs or photographs that I take. But eventually it becomes very easy to do. And now I'm at that point to where I enjoy the drawing so much that I just look for content. And there's a point to where, and this is the same thing with an instrument anybody plays, there's a point along your journey, because I feel like in life, we're never perfected. But we're always on the road to being perfected. But we're never going to get there in this life. But I always felt like as I do those drawings, I can begin to work on them every day. And I can begin to get better at doing them. And as with an instrument, there becomes a point to where you quit thinking about, you're struggling with, guitar is the same thing with violin. There's a synchronicity that happens with your fingers touching the instrument, the strings, the plucking, the bow, or the mouthpiece, and the reed, the sax, and the trumpet mouthpiece. There's a point to where you move away from the mechanics on how to do it and how to get it to sound right to being able to speak through it. You move away from worrying about how do I do it. You know how to do it, so then it becomes like talking. It's just like I'm talking to you. Eventually, with an instrument or with drawing, with sketching, or with design for houses or for buildings, you quit worrying about how you do it, and you're concentrating on getting the ideas out. or speaking through the instrument. And there's a point to where you make that shift. And with drawing, I had a very conscious point. I took a class in third year when I came up for UT for that first, my third year introduction into the School of Architecture at UT. And Michael Benedict, I don't know if you've heard of him. Okay, well, profound. When I'm at these when I'm at these conferences, what I'm listening for are profound truths.
Yeah.
So when I hear I call them zingers. When I hear a profound truth of anybody who's talking, I write it down.
Nice.
Okay, because understanding what people say that's profound helps me then to formulate my own versions of what I think is profound, and it makes us all become deeper thinkers. But the fact of writing it down sort of ingrains it and embeds it in my mind. That's why you do things by hand. That's why you practice. Okay, you can't. It's with guitar. I call it earning your tone. You can't go buy it from a digital box or something. The only way you're going to get it is you just got to sit there and you got to put the time in day after day, and that's true with anything you do. It's true with architecture. It's true with drawing. So Michael Benedict, I took a drawing class with him, and I'm sad to realize, that he passed recently, but he was an amazing mind. And so this drawing class, he said, draw a pathway. And so we went out at UT. There's like arches you walk through and pathways and between buildings. It's a very dynamic visual space, and we drew the pathway. Do 5 or 6 little sketches that show you walking through sequential images. And they said, okay, and then now that you've done that, draw another pathway. But draw a pathway as if you were walking through your refrigerator. So see right there, what he's doing is getting you to project in your mind what that would look like, and then draw that. So in essence, he's getting you to move out of your body, so to speak, and put yourself in places that you physically can't go to, and figure out how to draw that. And then the last thing I really picked up from that class was that he said, look at Spider-Man comics, because they're drawing views of the world from all different perspectives.
Yes.
Views of buildings from up, down. And so I never forgot about those words, because they were profound words, and they were ingrained in my mind, and I still think about that. So along the way, just as with an instrument or just with anything else, in my sketchbooks, at one point, I made the shift from drawing things that I see in front of me, which I still do, because that's part of urban sketching. You hear about, it's a huge movement, and especially in Europe, urban sketching is they have conferences with huge conferences, but you make the shift from drawing what you see to drawing things you see in your mind. And that's when I felt like I realized, well, shoot, if I can draw, I can transcend space and time, because I can come up with an idea, whether it exists in this dimension or another dimension.
Yeah.
If I have an idea and I can draw it, I can at least birth that idea on paper. But I have to be able to draw it. So see, that's why it's so critical for people that are in this profession, is to not lose that ability to sketch in real time, because those sorts of ideas, I don't want to have to explain to you, well, I'm thinking about this.
Oh, no.
But then you draw
It's completely
it through
different.
your filter.
Yes.
Okay? I want to draw it. I want it to be like playing my guitar, where I'm speaking through the instrument.
Beautiful.
I'm speaking from my mind. The ideas are coming out through my hands in the drawing. And I can give birth to anything in existence. Anything I can create in my mind, if I have the ability to draw, I can at least give it reality on paper.
I mean, I have a list of questions. Usually the dynamic is that I will ask you the questions. I don't need to do this. I mean, You really did it
I
amazing.
got enough to talk about.
So you can pick one of the questions.
Okay.
And that will be the question that will be in the podcast. So you can pick one. I have different colors of Sherwin-Williams here with me. So I will give them to you, and you can pick one of them. And just take a look and give me your favorite.
Well, I'm a big fan for green. Now,
Alrighty.
the green actually has several meanings for me
Really? Tell me.
with architecture. Well, first off, I feel like the best buildings should be the ones you don't see. Because see, we don't really own the land. The land has been here for millennia. All of a sudden somebody comes and pays some money and we own it, but we really don't own it. It's going to be here. It was here way before us. It's going to be here way after us. Okay. We're really just stewards of the land. So I feel like as being stewards of the land, we want to do things that enhance the land, not shout at the land.
Exactly.
And it's a term that I've come up with for a talk that Orrin and I are given, have done at the Texas. We did this talk at the Texas Institute of Building Design. It was me demonstrating, but it's called listening to the land, and then letting the land lead you. And it's the idea that architects are great at big ideas. We have big ideas. We're creative people. We're problem solvers. But I really feel like as we walk out onto a property, for let's say a house, because that's probably where you have the most opportunity to shape things. Because oftentimes, inner city lots, you're fixed with the orientations. And we walk out onto a piece of property, and we can come up with our own idea about what we think wants to happen there. But oftentimes when I walk out on a piece of property, I'm kind of walking by myself. I'm a bit in a daze because I'm trying, and I said, well, I didn't really notice I was doing this, but it's like I'm just kind of feeling out the property. And I guess you call it, I'm kind of listening to see, well, what's the big idea out here with this piece of property? How does it want to be dealt with? I'm coming out and imposing my idea on a piece of property that already has been habitat to other people probably over the past, but certainly to animals and insects and all sorts of creative things. And I'm going to sit there and plop my idea down. Well, it doesn't seem right. So if I can find out what is the land telling me about where it wants to have a house put on it, and then if I can take that idea and listen to it and understand it, and then take the ideas of the client. Because remember, just as architecture is not about buildings, it's about people, it couldn't even be about people unless you have somebody who's willing first to have the vision to hire an architect. So see, the gel of the any project doesn't start with the architect. It starts with somebody feeling like, I want to do this. There's something that I want to build, and I want it to be whatever for a reason. I want it to be a good place. I want it to be healthy. I want it to have a great place for me to raise my family, or a great place to end my days at. And that's where the project starts. So it's like design awards, it's fine. But I really think we shouldn't be giving design awards to architects. We should be giving design awards to the whole team. Because I've been on job after job after job where the client might say an idea about what they're thinking, or a structural engineer might say something about what they're thinking, or a civil engineer might say, well, what if you tried this? And then we're hearing all that, and we take that and synthesize it, and we come up with an idea. So I really think that I would love to see design awards be given to teams, and give one to the whole team versus singling out the architect, because no project starts without the vision of a client and their financial wherewithal to start that project.
Nice.
So when you listen to the land, the ideas come from the land and not from the ego. And I even have this other idea. I mean, you've heard legacy homes and 100-year houses and all these things, but this is just me postulating, conjecture. What if our houses were designed and constructed to, at some point, we can press a button and the house begins to slowly disintegrate into compost. And then in a year, there's no evidence that there was ever a house there. And literally the land goes back to being the land, to rebuild itself into the next use that it wants to have with whomever it wants to have a relationship with. And it's a different way of looking at buildings, because we want to build these structures that last for centuries, but the uses change. What if we think of houses being built well, being healthy, being durable, consuming less, doing all those things, cost less to operate, more efficient to build because they're better designed. It's an idea that I've had where you build houses that live larger but that are smaller. Okay? Small houses that live larger, so that you're not spending as much for the house, you're taking up less space in the land, and all the systems in the house are smaller because you're not having to spend as much to operate it. Mm-hmm. But what if we think of houses not being, 'cause I've seen time after time again that oftentimes houses, when the owners live out their days, it passes on to heirs. And most of the time, many times, those heirs don't want the house, they sell it. What if you have the opportunity at some point to say, well, what if we think of houses not being such long-term things? I mean, we can do those houses, but what if they go back and let the land reclaim the house and start afresh, and let it be re-envisioned for the next person who wants to come along, or let it go back to just being land and not have a house. So why I like that's a long way to get back to saying why I like green, because green projects houses and buildings that have a lot of green seem to blend in to the landscape and don't shout.
Yes.
And so they become, I think, less intrusive on the environment when they reflect earth tones and sandstones, and they reflect like the rocks and the outcroppings around, and you use weathered limestone. It's an idea, again, of trying to do a house that blends in so well that you have to kind of look twice.
Yes.
That they were there. And I believe that Frank Lloyd Wright was moving a lot in that direction, because his work made use of so many natural elements and the methods of construction. And in fact, I was in Scottsdale 3 weeks ago at this year's TSA Design, Texas Society of Architects Design Symposium, and I learned a new thing. It's the third time I've been to Taliesin West. And his studio, his personal studio where he did designs, in the drafting room where all the apprentices worked, they had canvas panels that I didn't realize when they left to go back up to Wisconsin for the summer. They would winter in Scottsdale and they would summer up there outside of Chicago, at the first Taliesin. Taliesin West was in Scottsdale. They would take all the fabric panels in these frames off the building and store them so they wouldn't deteriorate. And the whole place would be with no roofs, all open air. Then they'd come back out there for the season and put the panels back up. So it was like these were really just pavilions to live in. And that, to me, made them even more natural versus heavily built. So I thought that was...
And how they were installed to get removed?
They had a system where they locked them in.
Love it.
And they would oftentimes lift them. And but I had never known that that's what happened.
Yeah.
And so the insides of these buildings, especially his studio, had almost felt like you were in the middle of this rock opening.
Nice.
Because some of the walls were rock and stuff. But it was built like that. Yeah. It was really built to be almost like open air. So those are all great lessons to think about when we do buildings, to get out of the mindset that you see a lot of people doing and think about, how can I do a building that is so well integrated into its surroundings that you almost don't see it.
Yeah.
And I'm not there yet. I mean, it's part of the journey. I'm not sure I'll ever get a chance to do that. But at least I have a vision of what that might be. And that's why I like this green color.
Which one is that one?
This is Rookwood dark green. And it could be really any green, but I think I like this one because it doesn't really shout at you that much.
Love it.
And when you see a color like this on a building, you're gonna, and just like sandstones versus white limestones, when you see these things on a building, you start to maybe not think so much of the building, but you start to relate to the landscape.
So this is a good question. The color that you picked is a good question, and yes, I'm loving.
So you have questions that are keyed to the colors.
Yes.
Well, that's pretty. Now that you should. You told me that before.
Yes.
So it's a trick question. No.
This
trick
is.
color.
I'm laughing because if your business had a theme song,
oh God,
what will it be? I think that is perfect for you.
I'm just not up on popular music. So I wouldn't know what to choose on that.
Choose one. I know that we have many. Probably it's not the most accurate one, but pick one.
There's a song by the movie composer Nicholas Bertel.
Okay.
And he writes scores for movies. And he has a song called Agape. And it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. And it starts off with I think a soprano sax or something coming in, and it just sorts of build. And people have used it on Instagram Reels where they're showing scenes of the cars and the people walking around, like say in the 1910s and 1920s.
Okay.
And it just has that that feeling of hope and soaring hope and positivity. And it makes you feel good, and it makes you feel hopeful about the things around you. It lifts you up. It's a song that lifts the spirit.
Nice.
Just like when I see art, I think good art, well chosen, transcends the spaces that it in. It helps to add another additional, because I feel like the art, whatever it is, you're carrying, just like what I've talked about here today with my thoughts on architecture. It's the same thing with the artist. They're conveying those things with their work. So when you see art that transcends, it changes the atmosphere where you're at. Okay, and I feel like one of the goals that I want to have as an architect and as a musician is to be an atmospheric changer. I want to change the atmospheres with the work that I do for the people that are in them. And I don't know if we've thought of architecture being that way, but any sort of endeavor creatively, whether it's art or architecture or painting or whatever, we have the opportunity to lift up those that are part of it. I was just looking at Le Corbusier, Hubert Le Corbusier. I'm gonna buy a set of his glasses, the round ones. But I recently, just as I was looking for his glasses, kind of.
I love them.
A little shallow, but I said, do they offer them anywhere? So I was doing a search, but then Ronchamp came up, church at Ronchamp, and I was just looking at the pictures, and I didn't have people in them, so I have to say we need to have people in the pictures. But again, that's a space that is transcendent.
Yeah.
But I think that's what the creative, whether it's music or art or architecture, or whatever else somebody's doing, we have the opportunity to impact people and make life better.
Yes.
either through functions. Yeah, everything that we see, interact with, and touch on a daily basis has been designed by somebody. Okay, it really is astounding because nothing gets built. We did Austin Home Magazines. They had like a design house event, and there was one of the producers. Somebody said this. It was either one of the producers or the set designer. And they said, when you're watching a film, nothing is in that film down to this little card that might be sitting in the movie by chance. Everything that you see in that film is purposeful and put there for some reason. It has been thought about.
Yeah. All the props, all the everything.
Everything.
Yep.
And I feel like that's the work that we do. And everything we see in life that we interface with, from the cars that we drive to the streets that we drive on, to picking up a Diet Coke or buying something to the grocery store or walking into a building, or everything has been designed, and somebody's had to come up with those ideas. So because everything is designed and thought up, we really have the ability to make all those things better, which makes people's lives better, which goes back to the original idea. We have the opportunity as designers and creatives to literally change the atmospheres of the spaces that we're in, so that the people that breathe life into those spaces, people that occupy them, those spaces can be transcendent for them.
Yes. Oh my God, Alan, it has been a pleasure to talk with you. I cannot.
You probably
I
weren't expecting this.
No, I was. Probably this one is the deepest conversation that I have had in the podcast, and I really appreciate that because, again, one of the goals is just show not only the properties, not only the houses that the architects here in the industry they are doing. I mean, that is their job, but as you said, there is no architecture without people. And I am talking about the people that is using the houses, that is living there, but also the people that is behind the construction. Mm-hmm. So when I walk through all of those tours, from the modern tour or the AIA tour or all that, that's where all of this started, because I was very intrigued and I was curious about who is the person that is behind all of this.
All right.
So I love that you share a lot of these deep thoughts with us, and I really appreciate them. That those were beautiful, and I think that
wasn't there a Saturday night skit that said deep thoughts with somebody? Anyway.
Oh no! But thank you so much.
Sure,
again.
It was a pleasure.
So if you can share with us. The information, how people can reach you out, the social media, website, your email, we are now in the Barley Pfeiffer office. So if you can share with us the address, how people can connect with you guys.
We're at the corner of 6th and Mopac, 1800 West 6th Street, just before you start to curve and go north on Mopac. So we're at the end of 6th Street right there. And you can find us there, 1800 West 6th. Give us a call, 512-476-8580. Talk to one of our other partners, who's also our office manager, Vanessa, or my wife, Dee Dee, who is her assistant, and we can find out the information that you want to get, and one of us will get back to you or give it to you then. On Facebook at Barley Pfeiffer, on Instagram at Barley Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
And I think those are probably the two platforms that we're very active on. We do a lot of reels on Instagram.
Pretty good. Very educational. Pretty good
they
stuff.
are, and I think they're very well done, and they help give you a little more insight as to what we do. We at this same Austin Home Magazine Design House gathering, one of the people speaking mentioned that there isn't a lot of presence on TikTok from architects. So one of my goals, and he said that one of my goals TikTok is to move into that medium too, because I think it's a huge medium. It used to be Instagram when I first started. I think it was 2012. It was really a place just to put photographs, and so I'd do a lot of photographs and I'd do a lot of editing.
Yeah.
And make them look kind of cool in high definition. But it really has become the place I go to research other work of creatives.
Yeah.
So if I'm Le Corbusier, I'll do a search of that and I'll see what's there. Or so it just kind of leads you down that.
Yes. Another resource.
What I call the rabbit hole.
Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Alan. And go follow them. And as soon as you see the TikTok user, go follow them as well.
We're working on that. So.
All right. Well,
thank you so much, Creative Blueprints.
Thank you.
It was very enjoyable, and thank you for having.
Thank you. This was not enough.
Because folks, it's again, nothing happens unless somebody has a vision on doing something that can, what I call, change the atmosphere of those. And thank you for having the vision.
Thank you.
To allow people like me to have a voice to talk about these things.
Absolutely. Always. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, all of you, to watch this episode. Of course, go and follow us on Instagram at Creative Blueprints, my professional Instagram at mitziavila.designer. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you.